Hello everyone, I am Dr. Akshat, a radiologist, and on this platform of Radcliffe, we are going to discuss about the various imaging modalities, various imaging that can be useful for radiologists to get to a stepwise and objective approach of lesions involving the body areas. In these videos, I'm going to discuss about the neurology, that is the brain and spinal cord, the mass lesions, the infection, any kind of lesions that are going to involve how to objectively approach a basic area, the important anatomy, and the various reporting points that needs to be taken care of. Now, this is a diagram of the cellular region in which you can see that this is the pituitary gland. It is connected by a stalk. It's surrounded by the cavernous sinus, which has nerves and vessels, internal carotid artery. Below of this is sphenoid sinus. Also, it is enclosed surrounding by the meninges. Now, if we approach the cellular region in a stepwise manner, first we identify the pituitary gland and its stalk within the cellular compartment. Then, if there is a lesion involving the pituitary, we determine the epicenter of the lesion, whether it's in the gland or whether it's above the gland, whether it's below the gland. We analyze the basic morphology of the lesion, whether it has a predominantly cystic component, whether it has a solid component, whether there are flow voids or whether there are calcific foci in it, and then we approach the basic differential diagnosis. Now, what are the lesions that can arise from these anatomical areas that we deal in the cellular region? Now, from the gland itself, you can have the adenoma, the Rathke's cleft cyst, the craniopharyngioma. From the stalk, we basically have we have Rathke's cleft cyst, craniopharyngioma. We can also have germinomas and eosinophilic granuloma or METs. Then the optic chiasma, as we can see the area superior to the gland, we can have glioma or a demyelination disorder that can affect this area. Then above it is the hypothalamus, from which gliomas can arise, hematomas can arise, germinomas can arise. Now we have vessels. We should not always rule out any pathology that is arising from the vessel. Now from these vessels, they can mean aneurysm, they can mean ectasia, other anomalies. Then from the cavernous sinus itself, we can have, because the nerves are a part of the cavernous sinus, abducens goes through it, and rest of the nerves are in the walls, lateral walls of the cavernous sinus. So there can be a schwannoma, or there can be an inflammation of the cavernous sinus itself, or there could be a carotid cavernous fistula. Now, as I said, the meninges are also covering. From the meninges, there could be a meningioma or there could be a basic inflammation of the meninges. Not to forget that below the cellular region is the sphenoid bone. Now, from sphenoid bone, a squamous cell carcinoma can arise, a chordoma can affect the sphenoid bone, METs could affect the sphenoid bone, and inflammation could affect the sphenoid bone. Now, let's basically the cystic lesions are. First of all, we are going to discuss about the Rathke's cyst. Now, what's exactly the Rathke's cleft cyst? Basically, it's a benign endodermal cyst of cellular region. That is, it's an extra axial. Basically, to summarize it, it's an extra axial non-enhancing lesion. Now, to approach any extra axial non-enhancing lesion, let's keep this in mind that a non-enhancing extra axial lesion would either be a rapidly arterial flowing blood, that is a large blood vessel, or it could be a tissue which doesn't have any cell, like a cystic lesion, that is the Rathke's cleft cyst itself, or it could be an area which is not being supplied with the blood, like in any infarcted area. So normally the Rathke's cyst 60% of the time is supracellular and 40% of the time it is inside the cellular area. Now on NCT, on axial NCT scan, we'll see that the Rathke's cleft cyst is iso to hypodense with no calcific foci within it. On T1 it's mostly hypointense, on T2 it's mostly hyperintense. Now on FLAIR it's hyperintense. It can have a claw sign by the rim of the normal pituitary gland. Now important is that we need to differentiate Rathke's cleft cyst with a very close differential of another cystic lesion, that is the craniopharyngioma. Now the craniopharyngioma is an epithelial derived lesion, with the Rathke's cleft cyst was an endodermal derived lesion. Now pathologically, craniopharyngioma Pathologically, craniopharyngioma is divided on the basis of morphology into two types. One is the adamantinomus and the other is the papillary. Now, the erythematomus is most commonly found and it's most commonly seen in children, whereas the papillary is seen most commonly in adults, is less commonly found but seen mostly in the adults. Now, morphologically, if I have to discuss about the craniopharyngioma, normally it has calcific foci, normally it has calcium within it, it displaces the pituitary gland. It follows a 90% rule. The 90% of times it will have a cystic component, 90% of the time it will enhance. So that is a differential. That differential is from a Rathi cleft cyst, which basically does not enhance after contrast enhancement. On MRI sequences, craniopharyngioma has a T1 component, it is hypo to hyper. T2 flare, it's hyper intense, it does not suppress on flare. Now it has enhances, and it has been seen that mostly it has a solid nodule which enhances, that is the intra component, intra solid component inside the lesion which enhances. Now if you find a multicystic bizarre appearing lesion in a child group age, in a child, most likely it is a craniopharyngioma. Now let's see the images. Now here you can see that there's a young gentleman who presented with headache and visual disturbances. Now this is a plain NCT scan. As you can see that there is a hypodense lesion right over here with a peripheral rim of calcification. It's predominantly in the suprasellar region. Now on sagittal T1 and on T2, you can see in sagittal T1 it's not hyperintense. The pituitary gland is over here downwards. Now on the T2 it has a higher, it's very hyperintense on T2, so it predominantly confirms that it's basically a cystic lesion. Now if you can, on the post contrast scan, you can see there's a peripheral rim of contrast enhancement, or you can see around it. Basically this lesion came out to be an erythematomus craniopharyngioma. Now over here you can see that there's a lesion in the cellar, in the suprasellar region. It's enhancing, it's very vividly enhancing, it's enhancing strongly, avidly enhancing, and but there are no calcific foci within it. You cannot see very calcific foci within it. On core T2 it's basically a little bit of heterogeneously hyperintense. On post contrast scan, you can see that there is a intracytoplasmic enhancing nodule. You can see over here with a peripherum of enhancement. Now this was a papillary kind of craniopharyngioma. Now these lesions, craniopharyngioma, when a patient presents with craniopharyngioma, he presents with clinical complaints of headache or visual disturbances, or could be some hormonal problems if the stalk is being affected or the pituitary gland is affected. So clinical history is also very important. Now if you see the differential which we were discussing earlier, the Rathke's cleft cyst, if you can see that here, you can see a very non-enhancing hypodense lesion that you can see right over here, where the rest of the lesion is enhancing, but the central lesion is not enhancing. The vessels are enhancing around the lesion. On the MRI scans, you can see it's hypointense on T1. There's remodeling of the sella, and there's a peripheral rim of pituitary gland tissue right over here, the residual pituitary gland tissue here, and on it's hyperintense on the T2 scan as well. So this is basically Rathke's cleft cyst. Now other differential cystic lesions could be a dermoid. Now how do we differentiate a dermoid? A dermoid will always have a fat density or calcification density within it. Other could be an epidermoid cyst. Now the epidermoid cyst has a classical morphological feature that it has a restrictive appearance on the diffusion weighted, so that could be a point that we can help to diagnose it. Or mostly it's not in the midline, it's off midline. Then you can have the arachnoid cyst. Now the arachnoid cyst has a property that it follows CSF signal sequence, CSF signal intensities on all sequences. Now there could be an inflammatory cyst like neurocystic sarcosis. If you can, now neurocystic sarcosis has that patient present with seizures, and it has a morphology that vesicular, colloidal, nodular, granular, that it evolves with the stages. Then that can help us to differentiate it with the other lesions of the sellar region. Now let's move on to solid lesions of the pituitary gland. Now, normally a patient who presents with a pituitary lesion also has hormonal problems. Now, the hormone like galactorrhea or along with visual complaints. Now, You have to remember this dictum that if a lesion involves a pituitary gland, then if the gland is involved, you cannot see the gland. To see the gland, there's also a T1 bright spot that the posterior pituitary is hyperintense on T1. So if you cannot see the T1 hyperintense bright spot, it means that the gland is involved. And if the gland is involved, you have to suspect an adenoma. Now, adenomas are enhancing solid lesions appearing in the cellular and supracellular regions. Now, they have a morphological appearance that they cause remodeling of the sella turcica because of the pressure effect of the solid lesion, and they have a morphology of figure of 8. Now, if you can see that the adenoma, it when it's extending superiorly, it indents upon the diaphragmatic sellae. So, and it can have inside within the lesion, it can have hemorrhage, it could have cystic components within it. Now, on the plain NCCT scan, it's iso to hypodense, whereas on the MRI sequences, you can see after contrast administration, it avidly enhances it. So now let's move on to the solid lesions of the involving the cellular areas. Now, as the pituitary gland, the normal morphology has that the posterior pituitary has a T1 bright spot, that it is hyperintense or T1. It's a normal morphological characteristic of the pituitary gland. A particular kind of lesion involves the gland as whole. That means you cannot identify the pituitary separate from the lesion. This particular lesion is called an adenoma. Now, patients will come that they are experiencing some kind of hormonal problems like galactorrhea, headache, or visual complaints. Basically, hormonal problems are the main pathology of these kind of lesions. Now, these adenomas, involve the gland as whole. That is, the mass cannot be differentiated separately from the gland. That is, the lesion, the mass is inside the gland itself. Now, it is solid as well as it shows contrast enhancement. Now, it has a typical, as you have read, a snowman kind of a morphology. Now, basically, the diaphragmatic sellae forms the roof of the cella. So, any kind of lesion, if it's arising from the gland itself, from the cella, and it will ascend upward, it will bulge the diaphragmatic leaflets upwards like this because the lesion is coming from below upwards. Now, morphologically, an adenoma is a well-defined solid lesion. It causes the remodeling of the sella turcica. It's not a very aggressive lesion per se. Now, what are the findings? What kind of morphology we expect? On a plain NCCT scan, it's isodense. It's not very hyper, it's not very cystic kind of a lesion, it's a solid lesion. On MR sequences, on both T1 as well as T2, it's basically iso intense. Now, on post contrast enhancement, it shows moderate enhancement. That it means that it shows enhancement, but it's not very avidly enhancing lesion. Now, normally it involves the gland, so the T1 bright spot is absent in these lesions. Now, the close differential of an adenoma is a meningioma. But before moving on to the meningioma, there are two kinds of adenomas basically. One is a macroadenoma and one is a microadenoma. Now, the basic difference is the size, that macroadenoma is more than 10 mm, microadenoma is less than 10 mm. But important is to pick these lesions. Now, a macroadenoma is a bigger lesion, so a person will be able, a radiologist will be able to pick this lesion well. But a microadenoma is very small. It's inside the gland itself, like a nodule. So how to pick it? For this, we employ a dynamic contrast sequence. Microadenomas have a property that they show delayed enhancement. The rest of the pituitary enhances earlier. However, the microadenoma does not show that enhancement. It shows a delayed enhancement. it will be hypo-enhancing on the initial scans of the dynamic sequence. So this is a thing, this is by which we can differentiate a microadenoma versus a microadenoma from a pituitary gland. Now, if we see this case, now this patient basically presented with the complaints of galactorrhea. This was a female. Now you can see that there is a, this is a T1, so that's a T1 scan. Now here this lesion is involving the sella and you cannot see the T1 bright spot over here. The gland cannot be seen separately. Basically, the lesion is arising from the glandular tissue. On post contrast, it is showing moderate enhancement. It's not very heavily enhancing, moderate enhancement. There is slight remodeling of the sella. It's ballooning out downwards. There is no erosion, there is no destruction. So this is a typical case of a macroadenoma, pituitary macroadenoma. Now moving on to this, as you can see on post contrast right over here, this is small foci of non-enhancing while the rest of the gland enhances. There's also a slight bulge this area. This is a smaller, this is a microadenoma because it's showing delayed enhancement. That is, it is hypo-enhancing to the corresponding gland on the initial dynamic sequences. Now, the differential of the solid cellular lesions after an adenoma, the closest differential would be a meningioma. As I've already discussed, that a meningioma, that meninges are surrounding the cellular region, they are surrounding the cavernous sinus. So this is a very common tumor, as you can see, it's an extraaxial tumor. Now, a meningioma has that on NCCT, a meningioma can appear to be hyperdense. It can have calcific foci within itself, and on post contrast scan it will show a very avidly and strong enhancing. Normally it shows avidly and strong enhancement. Now a meningioma also is associated with dural tailing. Normally these features are not present in adenoma. Adenomas usually do not have calcification. Adenomas can have hemorrhage if the lesion is complicated, but these are the basic morphologies that will help us to differentiate meningioma from a adenoma. Another differential of this area that could be enhancing, that could be involving a mass lesion, could be the carotid arteries are also closely involved with the cellular region. So any kind of an aneurysm, we always have to look out for these aneurysm. Now how to suspect an aneurysm would be that on MR sequence it will have an eccentric flow void within it, and most importantly, if an aneurysm is chronic, it will have a peripheral rim of calcification. So that is how we can suspect an aneurysm. But we have to always look out for an aneurysm. We have to see the carotids, the relationship with the lesion. Then another in elderly, we can have METs. Now METs can involve the cellular region. Now how do we, the METs is a very aggressive lesion. It will involve the area, it will destroy, erode the area. There will be erosion, destruction of the area. It will have irregular margins, and most importantly it will grow rapidly, and it won't have any time for expansion or for causing remodeling of the cellular turcica. It will directly erode the cellular turcica. That is very important. That's why the vessels, the bony involvement is very important while we are suspecting cellular lesions. Now if you can also see in the lesion, the METs, that sphenoid bone has a bone marrow within it, a fatty bone marrow, which is T1 hyperintense. Any lesion that will infiltrate the sphenoid bone marrow will replace the fatty bone marrow, and there will be a loss of hyperintensity on T1. That's how you suspect that this is a pathology that is involving the sphenoid bone as well as the bone marrow cavity. Now, there's another mass that could involve, that is the chordoma, which directly arises from the sphenoid bone. It's a central mass lesion. It's a fungating mass lesion. It has calcification within it. However, in these lesions, whether it's METs, if it's involving sphenoid bone, or the chordoma, you'll always see the pituitary gland separate from it. You have to remember that the adenoma is a basic mass lesion that arises from the gland itself. The rest of the mass lesion either displaces or it could involve, but you will see the pituitary gland separately from those. Now, there could also be another lesion that could involve the cellular area. However, it is less commonly seen, is the Germinoma. A germinoma basically involves the pineal region, which we'll discuss in further sections. However, sometimes germinoma crawls upon the floor of the third ventricle and reaches up to the sella. We'll discuss more about it later on. In children, a tumor like pilocytic astrocytoma can also involve this particular area. It will be involved. It will have the property that will cause enlarged optic chiasm. It will have a variable enhancement. These lesions will discuss in great detail in the upcoming section, upcoming videos. So these were the basic mass lesions that could involve the cell and supracellular regions and the paracellular regions. In the next video, we'll discuss about lesions, the inflammations, infections, and the normal variability in the pituitary gland. When do we see that there's a pathology? What is the normal response of the pituitary gland in the upcoming video? So stay tuned for it.